There is nothing wrong with your MP3 application. Do not attempt to adjust the lossy data compression. We are controlling transmission. If we wish to make it louder, we will bring up the volume. If we wish to make it softer, we will tune it to a whisper.
We will control the speed.
We can change the reverb, make it echo. We can change the pitch down to 100 or raise it
to Michael Jackson levels.
For the microcentury or so, sit quietly and we will control all that you hear and hear. We repeat, there is nothing wrong with your MP3 device. You are about to participate in a great adventure. You are about to experience the awe and mystery which reaches from the inner mind to the Atari 7800 game-by-game podcast, where we will be discussing CX 7850 Barnyard Blaster and CX 7862 Ikari Warriors.
Hey guys, welcome to the Atari 7800 Game by Game podcast. My name is Phil. I'll be your host today. Got a lot to start off with, so I'll try and get through it as quickly as possible. First of all, our friend Ed from edladden.com, who does some wonderful joysticks and adapter for the Atari 7800, is branching into ColecoVision territory, making some Seagull CV, I think, adapters, or ColecoVision Seagull adapters where you can use other controllers with the ColecoVision. And also some ColecoVision arcade quality joysticks that work both with the ColecoVision and the flashback. And he's doing a Kickstarter for it. And the Kickstarter is live as of the time of this recording. And if you want to find it, I did post a link on my Facebook page. And you could also just go to Kickstarter and search for Ed Ladden or ColecoVision, and it should pop up. Let's see. It's got, it's about a third of the way there. He's looking to raise $9,650, and you have to get your pledges in by February 19th. Now, even if you don't have a ColecoVision, you can still support him. You could just do one of these things where you just, give him a few bucks to help him out, or you can get Ed Ladden stickers or ceramic mugs or t-shirts as well, even if you're not into the ColecoVision project. So Ed, all the best luck with your Kickstarter. Looks like it's going great so far. And go check it out and support him. That would be really awesome to do. Speaking of support, I want to give a big old thank you to the Retro League. The Retro League was very influential in getting me to start my YouTube show, The No Swear Gamer, and later this podcast. So if they weren't around, this podcast might not be around, and neither would my YouTube show. And I'm very thankful for them. And they actually invited me on during a regular episode. I was on about a year or so ago as just a one-on-one interview with Jungle Rat Rob. But I actually came on, and it was actually a kind of a big episode as far as length goes, because they also had Critical Failure from Tiger Claw Radio on there as well. And we talked about pre-one-on-one fighters, pre-16-bit, during the 8-bit era one-on-one fighters. So we're talking about one-on-one fighters on the NES, the 7800, and Master System. I talked about Fight Night, so fair warning there. But yeah, it was a good time. I really appreciate them having me on. If you want to check that out, that's the Retro League Podcast, episode 321. There were some holes in the part numbers between today's games. So let's see. Let's keep Ferg happy, and let's talk about that real quickly, although he would do a much better job than me. So Barnyard Blaster is 59. Marble Madness, according to a list I think that came from Atari Age, was supposed to be 60, and Paperboy was supposed to be 61. And Lost Dragon over at the Atari IO forums actually posted that he did an interview with a guy who was working on Paperboy, and that was actually finished and delivered. The guy's name he did the interview with, was named Andrew Holdroyd. And this is, let's see if I can find what he said. He was talking about how they were working on it, and they were working on Paperboy at the same time as the Master System for this company. So he said, you completed Paperboy for the 7800, which you delivered to Atari, which in true Atari style, they sat on it, never released it. Don't know what year this would have been, probably later on. So what can you tell us about the conversion? How did it shape up against the Sega Master System? And some other stuff. And the answer that Andrew gives was, this was my first project at Tire Techs in the deep end. I'd only previously worked on Commodore VIC-20 and 64, so the Atari display list system was a steep learning curve, but once I worked it out, it was a very powerful system. No help at all for a word processor or spreadsheet, but ideal for games. So I guess he's talking about the 8-bit. I had some good advice to get started from Andy Onions, who had just finished the 7800 Tower Toppler. The guy writing the Master System version at the same time, Gary Vine, was opposite me, and was interesting to compare the two as we progressed. The Sega could display more colors, but the 7800 could show more and bigger sprites. What we called the Venetian blind effect, the Paperboy screen fade, and it was really simple on the 7800, but a pig on the Sega, but he managed it. I really liked the arcade Paperboy. It's one of the games that I worked on, and I wished it had been released. So yeah, it looks like Paperboy was done but never released. I don't think that he found any ROMs for it, because talked about in the discussion how he would have had to find it, but he mentioned that it's probably long gone, which, think about how many files do you have from like 10, 15 years ago, so I understand how that goes. Nowadays it's easier, but back when discs were, different size and stuff like that. Yeah. All right. So I think that is all I wanted to get started with today's introduction. Let's go ahead and get to today's games, Barnyard Blaster and Ikari Warriors.
Hey, this is Willie
And this is RK.
from the 5200 Super Podcast.
Hey, this is Ferg. What am I doing here?
What are you doing here?
We like listening to the 7800 Game by Game Podcast.
I know I do, especially when I'm not down at the river wringing out my 7800 circuit board.
Beating against the rock.
Barnyard Blasters for your Atari 7800 Pro system. I hope you brought your light gun. Are you listening to me, Sean?
Barnyard Blaster was published by Atari and carries a copyright of 1988. It was also released on the XE, and that version has a copyright of 1987. So on the box art, you have two crows at the top flying, and they both look extremely happy. You have a gun hair sight, just a simple black sight right in the center of the box, blasting a bottle. However, it looks like something's off with the sight because the bottle's exploding above the sight, not directly in it. And you also have some other bottles and cans on a wooden fence that says Barnyard Blaster near the bottom. Looks like it was painted on with some brown paint. You can also see a corn stalk to the left, and to the right you could see a barn with some hay sticking out the top and a nice little, I guess that's a rooster weather vane on top of it, and some clouds in the background as well. So, it does a decent job showing you what the game is. At the back, it says, down on the farm, target practice. You and Grandpa are down on the farm. There are critters, bottles, and varmints everywhere, in the barn, in the yard, and in the cornfield. Grandpa has given you an Atari light gun to help you protect the farm. This sounds like, Grandpa's doesn't trust a little kid but wants him to imagine he's helping, so he gives him a fake gun. The moving targets are a challenge. Can you hit them? If not, try the veggies. They're fun to shoot at because, that's what you do at a barn. You blow up the vegetables. In the barnyard, bottles and cans on the fence provide great practice for warming up the old shooting iron. Well, I thought it was an Atari light gun. It's not made of iron. But perfect aim alone isn't enough. You'll need speed too. In the cornfield, birds swoop from the sky and rabbits scamper among the stalks. Owls and other pests appear inside the barn. Each scene can only be reached by hitting enough targets in the scene before. Once you zero in on some fancy shooting scores, Gramps offers you a bonus round by tossing target bottles in the air. So grab a hold of your Atari light gun partner and go get them. For 1 or 2 players, for use with the Atari light gun, for the Atari 7800 series system, and for use with North American and NTSC television sets only. But it doesn't say anything about winners not using drugs. So sad. The manual is a folded 4-page manual with your standard black, white, and a little bit of red cover art for the front. And in the manual it says, you and your grandpa just put your life savings into buying a small farm, a few acres for growing vegetables and raising horses, a place to get away from the battle of city life. Wow. So you and your grandpa, who with their grandpa ever, you were living in the city and decided to get get a farm. I mean, if you're getting up there in the years, wouldn't you want to kind of settle down? Well, I guess that's relaxing to some people, but it seems like a kind of far-fetched thing, but oh well. As the two of you settle in on the back porch, you notice a couple of small critters scurrying around the cornfield. Then you hear squeaks and squawks coming from the barn. Horror of horrors, your entire farm is infested with vermin, determined to drive you away. If you or them, with your trusty gun in hand, it's you or them, with your trusty gun in hand, you head for the barnyard. Gramps backs you all the way. You'll show them you're no city slouch. If you reverse the story and made this about a bunch of, nice little rabbits and roosters who are just free ranging on this barn, you could totally tell the story like American Tail Wise or something from the animals angle. That sounds like an 80s movie where it's like, oh no, these evil barn owners are here and they want to get us off the farm, but this is our home. We must fight for it. I can see that being like an animated 80s movie. All right, so it says, with your Atari 7800 set up, insert Barnyard Blaster into your console. Plug in your Atari XG1 light gun. Well, that's the first time they actually gave the technical name. They didn't do that in the box. They just called it the Atari light gun into the left controller port in front of your console. In a two-player game, players share one light gun. So you turn on your television with the power key. The Barnyard Blaster title screen will appear. Aim the light gun at the screen and shoot to view the game options. Bales of hay with one player or two player game options. If you don't shoot the title screen, the game option screen will automatically appear in a few seconds. Holding the light gun 3 to 5 feet from the screen, so I hope you have your tape measure out. Aim and shoot at the bale for the option you wish to choose. And of course you can pause, reset. To turn the music on and off, press select. You know what? I didn't realize that. I just played it. Your goal is to rid your farm of vermin by shooting targets in each of the 3 areas: the barnyard, the cornfield, and the barn itself. You aim and shoot your light gun to hit static and moving targets on the screen. You have up to 40 bullets per screen, so aim accurately and avoid wasting precious ammo. In order to advance through each area, you must achieve a certain percentage of shooting accuracy in that area. Each time you finish one area of the farm, your scores are displayed. Your score for that screen, your bonus bullet score, is based on number of spares and your total game score. You can shoot the score screen to advance to the next screen, or you can wait for it to advance automatically. The 4th area of the farm, Gramps' bonus screen, gives you a chance to brush up on your target shooting and earn extra points. The screen appears each time you leave one of the other areas of the farm. So there's 3 areas, but after each one, you hit this bonus round. So it happens a lot. So if you go through basically, if you're successful, you'll get 3 different screens, but 3 times where you're going to this bonus round, and then it repeats. If you make it through all 3 areas, you'll make the rounds again and again, with each round more challenging than the last. At the end of the game, you'll be given one of 13 possible target shooting ranks, from total dud to the lowest to blaster, the highest. So it gives you the rank. So if you don't complete any screens, you're a total dud. If you complete 1 to 2 screens, you're an egg hunter. 3 to 5, you're a stable hand. You're a hay baler if you complete 6 to 8. 9 to 11 is a cow milker. 12 to 14 is a redneck. 15 to 17 is a farmer. 18 to 20 is a harvester. So a harvester is better than a farmer? Okay. A husker is 21 to 23. A shootist is 24 to 26. A terminator, 27 to 29. A sniper, well, I'd rather be a terminator, is 30 to 32. And a blaster is 33 to 36. A terminator, that'd be so awesome if you got that and you actually showed your screenshot of a terminator. The farm layout. The Barnyard Blaster provides 4 screens on which to practice your shooting skills. The barnyard. In the barnyard, bottles and cans are lined up on the fence, offering great practice for warming up the old shooting iron. This is your target practice area. Watch for the gopher, who may appear in the field behind the tree. He's a quick little fellow. The gopher can appear on all 4 of the different screens. The cornfield. In the cornfield, you'll aim at static targets, watermelons and pumpkins, and moving targets, crows and rabbits. You must shoot the veggies before you can get the moving critters, because, that's the whole point, is to shoot the vegetables that you're trying to grow so you can get the critters. It makes total sense. There's also a scarecrow on the screen that sadly you can't shoot. At the barn, as you enter the barn, all sorts of critters will skitter across the floor. Occasionally, birds will swoop down. Gramps' bonus screen. On the bonus screen, Gramps will throw 10 bottles into the air to help you hone your shooting skills. Shoot each bottle before it disappears, but don't shoot poor Grandpa. If you do, the bonus round will end, but Grandpa will still be alive, and you can actually shoot the Grandpa. You know how in Duck Hunt people wanted to shoot the dog. Well, in this game, you can shoot the dog, but this time the dog is Grandpa, but it doesn't do anything except end your round, and Grandpa smiles just the same, and he's back again for the next round. In each of the areas of the farm. Points range from 10 to 250 depending on the target and how quickly you hit it. The smaller and faster the target, the more the points are worth. So in the barnyard, a bottle can be worth 10 to 50, a can can be worth 10 to 50, and the gopher is worth 50 to 250. In the cornfield, watermelons and pumpkins are worth 10 to 50. Rabbits and crows are worth 30 to 150 points, and the gopher is 50 to 250 points. Well, actually, that's for every round for the gopher. In the barn, the duck and the chicken, because, if you're in a barn, you want to shoot the chicken, is 20 to 100 points. Small birds, owls, and rabbits are 30 to 150, and the mouse and gopher, again, 50 to 250. And in Gramps' bonus screen, spinning bottles are 20 to 100 points. Now, it doesn't say this in the manual, but it seems that if you are too quick and you shoot the bottle right when he throws it, so it's like right above his head and it shatters like kind of on him, it docks your score. It doesn't give you a high score. Like, you want to shoot it just as it arcs over him a little bit, give him room. So I guess it's deducting points because you shot it too close to him and he got glass shards. I'm guessing that's the reason they do that. Oh, and by the way, with light gun games, especially this one, it seems that Atari light guns, even the best light gun, they tend, like if you're shooting straight ahead, it hits slightly to the left. So you have to adjust. It takes a while, but once you have it adjusted, it's fine, but there is adjustment period. And from what I understand, that is pretty much standard with Atari light guns. Atari XG1 light guns and the best electronic light guns, basically any light gun with the system. All right, so let's talk about the graphics. You have a Microsoft Paint style opening scene where you can see a little red barn and some fields, and it says Barnyard Blaster across the top in kind of like clouds. It looks like it's made up of clouds. And then again, a lot of this, honestly, this game looks like it could have been done in Microsoft Paint. If you remember playing around that back when Windows 3.11 was around, it looks like someone who was really good with Paint drew this. Then you have your menu screen, which is just two bales of hay, and one says one player and one says two player. Then you have your, what do they call that? The fence scene where you have the bottles. The bottles look pretty good. And when you blow them up, the shatter sounds decent, and the bottles themselves, that's okay. And you have some hills in the background. It's not too terrible. I mean, this looks like like I said, if you ask someone to draw in Microsoft Paint, it looks like probably about as good as you could get without getting like, unless you had some super expert, I guess. What do they call that? The field stage. You have on the right-hand side, you have a bunch of corn stalks and a scarecrow, kind of just his shoulders and head peeking over. It's almost creepy coming out of the cornfield. And you have the sun, direct center, some clouds in the sky. You have 2 pumpkins and 4 watermelons. And you have to shoot those veggies first. And then you have the barn screen, looks like inside of a barn. Why don't you just close the door? And then you have the Gramps shooting screen. In the Gramps shooting screen, Gramps is to the right smiling. And he kind of looks like, now that I look at it, he kind of looks like Nolan Bushnell dressed up as a farmer. And he throws the bottles in the background. You can see the barn and the silo that looks like it's kind of beat up and some trees in the background. Overall, I think the game looks decent for what they're going for. It's a barn. And then at your scoring screen, you have the Atari Fuji logo at the top of the barn, and it tells you your screen score, your bullet bonus, and total score in big yellow font. And there's a nice milk can to the left and a bale of hay to the right. And you can shoot anywhere on this screen. It'll do one of those bullet shots that goes everything. It's not going to explode the milk can, but you'll see a big old bullet shot over the milk can or the Atari Fuji symbol, wherever you shoot if you want to move on. Music it sounds, well, guess what? You have a decent, I guess, not exciting version of Old MacDonald Had a Farm, and then just some standard shooting sounds, I suppose. Atari Age gives this a rarity 1, so does Digital Press. To me, that's kind of low. I don't remember ever seeing this in stores, but it might be one of these games that I don't know the numbers. Maybe they didn't produce a lot of them, but no one cared. Because, I mean, it's a light gun game, and most Atari 7800 owners didn't own a light gun, so why would you buy it, right? As far as the external reviews at Atari Age, there was 3 of them. The high was 61, the low was 50 for an average score of 56%. There was no high score club record for this one. And my guess is, it's kind of hard with light gun games to do a high score club record because how do you determine that, a person cheats by getting really close to the TV versus the distance? That's kind of hard to keep a score of. On eBay, there was one that sold with the manual for $11, one complete that sold for $13, and new copies were going for $8 to $11. So this is a game that you could probably find new for $10 if you're patient. Did not own Barnyard Blaster grown up. I don't remember ever seeing it on store shelves. It's one of those games that I don't think I saw until O'Shea's, and even on O'Shea's, I was tempted to buy it just because it was another 7800 game and they were cheap, but why buy a game when I don't have the gun? So that is Barnyard Blaster.
Ed Latin Controllers. Play the games the way they were meant to be played. Go to edlatin.com for more details. Your wish is my command.
Company history. SNK.
SNK is an abbreviation for Shin Nihon Kakao or Kyaku. I don't know. I don't really know Japanese very well, but when translated, it means New Japan Project. It was founded in July of 1978 by Ikichi Kawasaki, and their first game was the arcade vertically scrolling shooter Ozma Wars in 1979. Now, the North American division of SNK was opened in 1981, and they established themselves in Sunnyvale, California, which is basically the same home as Atari, so they were neighbors. Some other of their earlier games that you might have heard of include Guerrilla War, Lee Trevino's Fighting Golf, and POW, all of which also appeared on the SNES, which I'm assuming that's how a lot of people might know the early SNK games is from their the NES counterparts. In 1990, SNK introduced the Neo Geo Arcade MBS, or multi-video system, which allowed owners to easily swap out cartridges that resembled large VHS tapes. The cabinets themselves could hold anywhere from 1 to 6 cartridges, depending on the model, and I have at time contemplated what I would do if I could get one stand-up arcade game. And usually I go in between thinking about maybe a 4-player Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle arcade game or a 4 or 6 slot MBS cabinet, because you can switch out games, which I think is a cool feature. Not that I'm really in the market for a stand-up arcade game. One day I would like to own one though. In 1991, SNK brought the Neo Geo to the home market with the AES, or Advanced Entertainment System, perhaps to one-up the NES name, or Nintendo Entertainment System. SNK would refer to it as a 24-bit system, but a lot of people tend to identify it as a 16-bit system that, in the words of John Hammond, spared no expense. And it was expensive. The gold package, which came with 2 massive black joysticks and 1 game cartridge that looked like a Sega Genesis game on steroids, retailed for $650, which after inflation would be over $1,100 today. You could also buy the silver package, which left out the game and only had 1 joystick, for $400, but then you had to buy the games, which themselves started at about $200 a piece, or basically $350 in today's money. One advanced feature that the AES had was an optional memory card that could also be used with the MBS machines, making it the first memory card in video game history and a pioneer in memory cards in general, because at that point we weren't using SD memory cards or USB memory flash drives. Both formats enjoyed a long life, with the final game, Samurai Showdown 5 Special, being released over a decade later in 2004. In 1999, SNK released the short-lived but very cool Neo Geo Pocket Color, which Willie just gave me. Thank you, Willie. However, SNK themselves, like many other video game companies, hit hard times in the second half of the 90s and declared bankruptcy in 2001. However, the original founder, Kowalski, who now headed up a company called Playmore, was able to acquire SNK's intellectual property and renamed his company SNK Playmore, while also hiring several key employees from the former SNK and continued releasing games on various platforms. At the end of last year, in 2015, Leiyu Technologies bought Kowalski's 81% stake in the company for $63.5 million in hopes to expand their properties into TV, film, and comics as well as games, so we might be seeing more of SNK in the near future.
Game history. Ikari Warriors.
Ikari Warriors was released in March 1986 in Japan, and also in 1986 in the States, distributed by TradeWest. It was a response to Commando by Capcom, which came out a year earlier. Now, Ikari Warriors was the first popular video game to use rotary joysticks, those which could be rotated in addition to being pushed in 8 directions. TNK3, released in 1985, also from SNK, was the first to use such joystick, but wasn't a very popular game. Ikari translates from the Japanese name or Japanese word anger, so basically they're the angry warriors. The player characters in Ikari Warriors are Colonel Ralph and Second Lieutenant Clark, and they were later in the King of Fighters series, and they were known outside of Japan as Paul and Vince in the Ikari series. They battle tons of enemies. Now, according to the designer, the game was inspired by the Rambo films and takes the name from the Japanese title of Rambo First Blood Part 2, which in Japanese is called Rambo Ikari no Dashutsu, or The Furious Escape. Ralph and Clark also make an appearance in Metal Slug 6 and 7, and as I mentioned in the King of Fighters series as well. The military commander the players rescue at the game is named General Kowalski in the Japanese version, named after the former president Ikichi Kowalski, and Colonel Cook in the U.S. and European versions, named after TradeWest founder Leland Cook. General Kowalski's name was unchanged in the NES version. The enemies in the game were neo-Nazis, and they had a swastika in the middle of the final room, but they changed that when they brought it over to the U.S. How about some cheats and tricks and bugs and Easter eggs from klov.com? Here's a hint. When you drive the tank, try avoiding upgrading from cannonballs to missiles. Cannonballs explode as super grenades, making it easier to hit gates and squadrons of men. Missiles, unfortunately, only take out one obstacle and will explode upon reaching their maximum range, which is rarely where you'd want it to be. There's also times when incoming missiles are impossible to avoid by the tank. There's a bug in the machine that maximizes the number of explosions that can be on screen at one time. When you must run over a trigger, fire off 3 shots rapidly in timed explosion when the missile lands. With luck, the computer will be unable to generate the explosion, and you and your tank can continue. And let's see. And I think that is it. There were some sequels after Ikari Warriors. There was Victory Road, which also made its way to the NES, and Ikari Warriors 3, The Rescue. And there you go, Greg from the SNES podcast. He wanted me to mention that. It is mentioned, and if you'd like to know more about the sequels, ask him, because I'll just tell you that they exist and they look similar but improved. I guess that pretty much goes with sequels, huh? Ikari Warriors itself was widely released. You could get it on the Amiga, the Amstrad, the Atari 2600, the ST, the Commodore 64, MSX and NES, PlayStation 3 and PSP. I believe that was like a digital mini SNK download, Windows and ZX Spectrum, among others. But of course, today we're going to talk about the 7800 version.
Atari Ikari Warriors for the Pro System.
Okay, it was programmed by Imagineering Inc. and carries a copyright of 1989, and we actually have some credits. So this was done in New Jersey, in Glen Rock. It was programmed by Peter Ma and also Tony Chung Luau and Tommy Han also helped out. The graphics were done by Michael Riddell and Mike Sullivan, and the soundtrack was by Alex DeMio, who you might remember, who had his hands in Pete Rose Baseball and Title Match Pro Wrestling, specifically on the 2600 versions of the game. So I thought the soundtrack was good, and I didn't know Alex was into the music side of things, but that was pretty cool. Okay, let's talk about the box art. It's pretty unique. I think it's original for the Atari 7800 version. I didn't see it on any Arcade Flyers. I could be wrong. So you have Ikari in big red lettering under and Warriors underneath in smaller yellow lettering with a white border. And then you have a big fire explosion in the background. There's a helicopter coming from behind you, so you better watch out. Actually, there's a pair of helicopters. There's one dude who looks like he's blind because he's squinting his eyes so much like he can't see, and he just appears to be firing 2 machine guns aimlessly in the air. Well, actually just one. The other one looks like it's out of ammunition, and he has 3 grenades hanging from his jacket and is totally zipped down so you can see his chiseled abdomen. So it's like this total macho look that's probably very ineffective in true war. You'd probably be dead in a second if you fought like that. And it looks like his partner is just behind him, actually aiming and shooting at something. So go, partner, you deserve more of the credit. The back of the box has 2 highlights. It says 2 can play together and for use for the 7800 series systems and controllers. And it says authentic arcade action. It's Ikari, just like you played at the arcade. As a member of an elite combat squad, you and your buddy are on a mission behind enemy lines. You gotta wade through the rivers, hide behind rubble, and shoot to destroy. Will machine guns, grenades, and attack tanks be enough to totally destroy the enemy? Lock and load, make every shot count. Your ultimate battle awaits. You are the Ikari Warrior. Ikari Warriors features super sharp graphics, high depth gameplay, and enhanced sound effects. It's all part of the power Atari brings you. And actually, I think that's a pretty good description. And there's 3 nice box shots on the side. This is kind of the motorcycle style box that you'd see at the end of the life that most games did not have this style, where it looked more like an NES box, honestly. And the 3 pictures, you have one of a standard picture where you're just out in the middle of a field fighting with your partner. You have another where you're coming across the bridge and you're getting ready to blow up an enemy pillbox, and then another where you're going through the water and there's an enemy a helicopter attacking you. So actually, I think they did a good job on the box overall. Manual, 6-page folded, I think, and of course you got the black and white and a little bit of red copy of the box on front. It says you are a member of those elite combat specialists, the Ikari Warriors. Your buddy and you are on a special mission behind enemy lines, and you've been sleeping, eating, and breathing jungle combat for the last 2 weeks. You're tired, but that never affects your razor-sharp judgment or your will to survive. Your main weapons are machine guns, grenades, and your own cunning in the face of danger. Sometimes you'll have a tank at your disposal, which comes in handy when enemy fire is particularly brutal. You move swiftly through the jungle, wading through the rivers and resting from time to time within the ruins of the bombed-out buildings. You're running out of ammunition and grenades, but you know the battle can't last forever. Sooner or later, one side is going to emerge victorious. Let's just hope it's yours. I actually like that description. Usually when it's this one man versus the world, they make you like a super soldier. Go get in. This one, it's like you're beat, you're tired, but you still got to do it. So I kind of like that. I think that's a pretty good description of the game. Overall, I'm kind of impressed by that. Let's see. We can have novice, intermediate, advanced, or expert difficulties, and you can have 1 or 2 player games simultaneously. Let's see. What does it say? Anything interesting? Okay, Jungle Warfare, playing the game. Ikari Warriors is a 1 or 2 player game of survival. You and your partner move behind enemy lines in hopes of wiping out the enemy. You begin the game with 50 grenades, 99 rounds of ammunition, and 3 lives. If you're lucky, you can capture a tank to protect you from enemy fire. Move your controller to maneuver through the jungle. Your main weapons are machine guns and grenades. To fire bullets and tank shells, press the left fire button. To toss grenades, press the right. Watch the bullet and grenade supply carefully. Pick up new supplies before you run out. Pick up new supplies. Simply walk over the supply icon and you can see the items there. Other items will increase your firepower. The tank, which moves only on dry land, provides safety from enemy fire. To enter the tank, move your player on top of the tank and press the right fire button. Although your tank can be destroyed by enemy grenades, you cannot be hit as long as you are in the tank. If the tank sustains damage and it stops, to get out of there. If the tank explodes while you're inside, you will go with it. To exit the tank, press the left and right fire button simultaneously, and that is very important because that's not something you're going to pick up unless someone tells you how to do that. So when the tank is getting ready to explode, press both buttons to get out and get away from that tank before it does. You can swivel the turret while maintaining the tank's position and orientation. Hold down the right button while you move your controller. The turret will move, but the tank will not. Press the left button to fire shots from your tank. You must pick up fuel along the way to keep your tank moving. The tank explodes if it runs out of gas, so don't miss the energy supply icons. The journey through the jungle in your journey through the jungle, you'll occasionally encounter a river or sea. You will have to cross the water in order to continue, but your movement will be slowed down while you're in the water. Actually, it didn't feel like it really slowed down that much. The NES version, it slows it down a lot, but this version, it seemed like it really didn't slow it down, like you're just almost going on just a blue background. If you come into physical contact with an enemy soldier, you lose a life. You can hide behind rocks and rubble to avoid gunfire. However, you will still be vulnerable to grenades, so watch out. Each time the enemy makes a successful hit, you lose a life. You receive a bonus life of every 20,000 points. The game is over when you lose your last life. There are no continues. To win the game, you must rescue the colonel being held captive by the enemy. You will receive 1 million points for rescuing him. And it tells you about the status bar that's on the top. So let's go from left to right. So on the top, you have tank fuel if you're in the tank, or you have your bullets and grenades, how many you got left. Then you have the player 1, how many lives he has remain in his score, the high score in the center, then the player 2 statistics along with their bullet and grenade count. And the default high score is 30,000. So of course you can get higher than that. It'll appear there, but once you turn off the system, you will lose that. So there's various items you can pick up. There's super bullets, which is an F, F for super bullets, to increase the strength of your bullets in your inventory. Super bullets can shoot through rocks, walls, and blow up tanks and bunkers. If you lose a life after picking up super bullets, the damage caused by the bullets will return to normal. I believe those look like oranges when you shoot them. They're like these big orange balls when you shoot them out. L is for range, which again, L for range. I'm guessing this corresponds to Japanese words. Maybe, I don't know. Or maybe there's something in the original game like length or something, but they call it something different in this manual. I don't know. I'm not an Ikari expert as far as the arcade version goes. Anyways, range doubles the range of your bullets and tank shells during your current life. Let's see. Super grenades are the B. They increase the strength of your grenades. K is a super bomb. This is a smart bomb. It will basically destroy every enemy on screen, so you'll want to wait till you get more enemies before you touch it. S is a special bonus, gives you 200 whopping points. A grenade will give you 50 more grenades. A gun will give you 50 more bullets. And then it looks like a gas tank or a pitcher. It will fill up your gas in your tank and add 99 bullets and 50 grenades to your inventory. So even if you're not in the tank, you want to get that because that pitcher is magical and will supply you with weaponry. Some strategy: conserve bullets and grenades. Plan your attack carefully, dash and quickly shoot them back off before the enemy has a chance to aim and shoot back. That is kind of vital to this game. This is more of a deliberate game than Commando, so you don't want to just run and gun. You kind of want to walk and plan your attack and be careful with the way you shoot. You kind of want to shoot and run back if you want to be effective. At least that's how I found it. If you come in contact with an enemy soldier, you lose a life. How's that a strategy? Learn enemy locations and anticipate their attacks. Tanks can be very destructive, especially when they run out of fuel. Keep an eye on your fuel level and be ready to bail out when your tank is empty. That is by hitting both buttons. And one thing I'll say too, it doesn't say this in the manual. I like this. What the Atari 7800 version does is when you hold down the fire button for your machine gun, you will continuously fire in that direction no matter where you move. So if you're facing straight ahead when you start your shot, you'll shoot straight ahead. And now you can move all over the screen while shooting straight ahead. So you can strafe. So it takes a little bit getting used to, but I like that a lot better than the NES version where it just shoots in the direction you're facing. It makes it a lot easier to, for me at least, to work around the enemies, where the 2600 version, you shoot the way you're facing. So you basically have to go, your gun has to be lined up with the enemy's gun, and it's kind of almost like a game of chicken. It's much more difficult. I really like that. Probably the best alternative to having a rotary joystick. It would have been awesome. I know this wouldn't have happened, but if they could have made this twin stick capable where one joystick controls your guy's movement, the other one controls your firing. Like if you had the Edlad and Super Twin 78 and then, you press a button to throw a grenade, that would have been immensely fun. I mean, and the best joystick combination would have been a dual joystick with each one with a button on one of them to throw the grenade. Scoring, you will get 100 or 200 points per soldier, 600 points per bunker, helicopter, tank, and 1,000 points per gate, and of course 1,000,000 for rescuing the colonel. Now, In the NES version of the game, you can fly in helicopters. It appears you can't in this one. There were some helicopters on the ground just sitting there, but if I tried to climb in them, like the NES version, I died. So I think you just only can blow those up. Graphics are, well, you start the game up, you have a screen with a blue background, and your two guys come up and they're shooting all over around themselves, and there's the Atari Fuji logo with a giant bullet. That's okay. Then you get a nice cinematic opening with a plane crashing into the jungle. But you've been there a week. I guess that's when your plane crashed. The graphics, if you're thinking Commando, I would say it's a step down. The character sprites themselves don't have a ton of detail. You can see your bandana and wristbands, and you can see that your dude's shirtless, and the other guys appear to be wearing hats and uniforms. They're okay, but they're not great. Things look a little bit more blocky than they did in Commando. Now, I know the 7800 tends to be more of a blocky game, but nothing that's just really super impressive, honestly. Spoiler alert, so if you don't want to know about the ending, you don't jump ahead a minute, but when you rescue the Colonel, he looks like this huge, giant, golden statue, like this huge, 60 feet tall, like he could have just destroyed everyone around him. It's kind of humorous. The music and sounds, I actually think the music and sounds are very good. Now, I forgot to say this. Unlike the NES version, this version of Commando just is like, it's one long level. It just keeps going and going and going until you save the Colonel. Going through the game will take you about 30 minutes if you're able to do so. So this game just keeps going and going. So there's like this percussive kind of soundtrack in the background going on the whole time, a little jingle at the beginning. I actually thought the music was good considering it's just, 2600 sound. I thought they got a lot out of this. I played the 2600 version after playing this, and they did not. This is one of those times where they didn't copy the music, and this really blew away the 2600 version sound, which makes me wonder, why didn't you just copy it over? Maybe they were working on it at different times. I don't know. But no, I like the sound. Well, you listen and you decide what you think. At Atari Age, they gave it a Rarity 6, Digital Press a Rarity 5. I think those are both fair assessments. This is a somewhat uncommon game to come around. There was 3 external reviews, 90 for the top, 80 for the bottom, for an average score of 86. This is one of the highest rated games I think there is on Atari Age. The high score club at Atari Age on the intermediate, Roadrunner, has a high score of 126,100. An Oyama family, I'm not quite sure, or Oyama family. Sorry, Oyama, if I'm saying your name wrong. On advanced, he got 1.2 million points with a video posted. On eBay, loose copies range from $20 to $34. Complete copies were going $40 to $53, and one new copy sold for $66. So this is one of the more pricey games out there. Late release. I never saw this on store shelves. So no, I didn't own this growing up. Both these games, only one was mentioned, Ikari Warriors, and ironically it was only mentioned in the first issue in a little preview section that didn't even bother to have a picture. Just telling that it was coming to the 7800 and the XE. I'm pretty sure it did not come out to the XE. I don't even know if they found a prototype of that. So that's it. Let's go ahead and get to your feedback.
Greetings, Earth people. It's me again. I See Robots from the greatest podcast in the world, the Toys R Us Report. And you are listening to the Atari 7800 Game by Game podcast with my brother from another mother, the No Swear Gamer, available exclusively on the Retro Junkies Network.
Listener feedback. Please send your feedback to Atari7800podcast@aol.com. Please. It gets so lonely up here.
Okay, both on Facebook and at Atari Age, I asked people to rank these games on my 4-point scale. The highest ranking is a Hall of Fame game. That means it's a top 5 game on the 7800. Then comes Solid, followed by Meh, and then Trash, which would be a bottom 5 game on the 7800 of the original releases. On Facebook, Randall said, Barnyard Blasters is solid, a good, clean, family fun shooting game. Just don't hit Gramps. Ikari Warriors never played the 7800 version, but from what I gather, solid. Over at Atari Age, Gambler 172 said both are solid games for me. Jinx says solid for sure, so I'm guessing he's talking about both of them, not quite sure. Inky says someday I need to get Ikari Warriors. I agree, Inky, do it. Drac is back, said Ikari Warriors solid plus, not quite Hall of Fame for me, but it's close. Love the 2-player action and its long vertically scrolling adventure. Graphics could be a bit better, but still quite good. Love the animated intro. I prefer Commando for the graphics, sound, hidden areas, and intermissions, but Ikari's a hoot. I'm normally pretty tough on Imagineering Absolute Entertainment games, but they did a good job on this. And yeah, a lot of the people, if you didn't recognize, are from the Absolute family, so I guess they worked for Imagineering. One thing that always puzzled me, though, why did Colonel Cook simply not stomp his way out of captivity, referring to the dude at the end who's like massive? Barnyard Blaster, meh, kind of a generic duck hunt. Played it once or twice when I got it cheap from O'Shea's and never bothered again. Bass Guitari said, I don't own Ikari Warriors, so I can't comment on that, although it looks like a pretty good game. Barnyard Blaster is pretty forgettable in my opinion. Not bad per se, but nothing about it really stands out, and it gets a bit tedious. Dauber from the Pie Factory podcast, who Inky's also a part of, said, I played the arcade Ikari Warriors and the 2600 Ikari Warriors, the latter for the 2600 High Score Club. Neither one impressed me. I don't have the 7800 Ikari Warriors, but somehow I have a feeling that if neither the 2600 nor the arcade version impressed me, then the 7800 version would be meh for me. As for Barnyard Blaster, well, I literally just got it last night. Maybe I'll do a recording of myself playing it for the first time. Yeah, please do that. We'll see if he sends that in. Propane13 says he agrees with Drac is back's opinion. So I guess solid for Ikari Warriors and meh for Barnyard Blasters. Drac is back, chimes back in. He says, as an aside, I got Ikari Warriors sent to me by Atari as part of the Atari Advantage program. I clipped the barcodes from a bunch of boxes, some of which weren't Atari Corp. Atari 7800 titles. Ooh, so I'm guessing maybe some Absolute or Froggo games or maybe Activision. And I thought I'd see if it worked. I gave them a list of games I wanted, and Ikari Warriors wasn't actually on a list. At the time, I was hardcore trying to get Commando, Alien Brigade, Scrapyard Dog, and Midnight Mutants. They did send me a game, but it was Ikari Warriors. I didn't complain, though, since I didn't entirely fulfill the requirements. Haha. That's hilarious. So you must have done this really late in the life. So they must have kept the program going for a while. That's impressive because they, first of all, you didn't follow the rules, and the Tremels get this reputation for being really cheap. So they could have told the people fulfilling the requirements, hey, if anyone even has one game off, don't send them to them. If you wanted to be really cheap, you could do that, but they still sent you a game, and they sent you Ikari Warriors. So let's assume for a second that the games you wanted, they didn't have. They could have sent you anything. They probably had a bunch of Jinxes laying around, or Barnyard Blaster, or maybe an earlier title that didn't sell well, but they gave you a really solid game. In a new release. That's actually impressive to me. That's thanks for sharing that. Save 2600 says Barnyard Blaster meh, Ikari Warriors solid. Barnyard is a game that I want to like more, but ultimately just can't get into. Nice that they included different stages, but something still seems to be missing. Oh yeah, action. Is there ever more than one moving target on any of the stages? Would have been more fun if the old farmer threw 2 to 3 bottles up at the air at once and more critters simultaneously running around the barn and cornfield. The static bottle screen is good old-fashioned target practice, but it gets old quick. Probably would have liked Barnyard Blaster better back then, but today it's just a meh, and I could totally understand that. Ikari Warriors is a little tougher and slower paced than Commando. Sort of a crawler comparatively, as you have to give your steps more careful thought. It is a different enough game in that way, which helps with the replay value, in my opinion. And it is more of a deliberate run and gun, so it's like a walk and gun. I think I mentioned that earlier. Retro Gamer 81081 says Barnyard Blaster, meh, bit on the easy side for me, and it doesn't provide a real challenge. The bonus stage with the old man throwing the bottles to shoot at is a cool touch, but it would have been better if it was a few at a time. Pales to Nintendo's Duck Hunt, Hogan's Alley, Wild Gunman, plus Master System's Safari Hunt. Yeah, I don't know if I said this during the initial going over it, but I kept playing it. I went through it, 3 screens plus the bonus, so 6 screens per round. I did probably 3 rounds, so I did like 18 screens, half of them which are the bonus stage, and I just said I don't want to keep doing this, and it didn't really seem that challenging. Ikari Warriors Salad, darn short of Hall of Fame material, a great run and gunner. The 7800 version is great, but I like the NES version the best. Interesting. It is Commando with top-notch up in it is Commando with a notch up in difficulty. If the graphics were a little sharper and smoother, it would have got Hall of Fame written on it. Still a fun game. All right, let's see. Sean says both Salad, Classic Pack, Barnyard Blaster is basically a light gun game. It really depends on how much you're into those kind of games. For me, meh. Ikari Warriors Salad, I wish they made more games like this. I just wish it had an easy setting. Well, it has novice, but I guess that is maybe that's a bit challenging is what he's saying. And Cosmic Stardust says Barnyard Blaster is Salad with the light gun. I haven't played Ikari Warriors. Yeah, without the light gun, Barnyard Blasters is trash because you can't play it. Trevor says jumping on the Drac bandwagon here. So Drac is popular today. Looks like Propane 13 and I agree on his opinion. He nearly took the words out of my mouth, which is impressive because usually Trevor has like an article right up for each game, like a little one of those, you know how in Game Pro or whatever they'd have like a paragraph summarizing the game. He usually does one of those, but today he just says Barnyard meh, Ikari Warriors Salad plus. And so far it seems like that's the consensus. Salad for Ikari, meh for Barnyard. But let's go to some audio feedback. And first up is Sean from the Pie Factory podcast. Maybe he's going to tell us what it was like playing Barnyard Blasters for the first time. So Sean, the floor is yours.
Hey there, Phil. Sean from the Pie Factory podcast. Thank you for, first of all, thank you for being on our show recently. It was an honor to have you. And also, I just want to assure you that this audio submission is not going to have any hidden references to forbidden games, let's just say. I got my trophy. I'm done with that, so don't worry about that. I just wanted to share my thoughts on Barnyard Blaster, just as I promised you. I have here a complete inbox copy that I recently purchased, thanks to eBay Bucks certificates recently being released. The box isn't in great shape, partly because it was in shrink wrap for probably since the day it came out, and those of you listening to this and think, ooh, I'm keeping mine sealed, I'm never going to play this game, well, then what's the point, number one. Number two, shrink wrap does what it says it's going to do. It's going to shrink, and it's going to crush anything that it can, which is why a lot of Atari boxes have like indentations about halfway down. It's not good for the box. Let them breathe. But anyway, I'm opening up the box right now. Silver label, black text. I guess it's pretty standard. Why was I thinking it's maroon text? Oh well. And let's see. I've never played this game before, so hey, let's see what happens here. Have a blast. I see what they did there because this is Barnyard Blaster. Rid the farm of vermin, shoot targets in each of 3 areas, barnyard, cornfield, and barn. Aim and shoot your light gun to hit. Oh, I don't have a light gun. Just my joystick here, my Uber arcade stick. I'm not going to use the pain line for this. Okay, so it basically looks like I have to shoot everything on the screen. Ooh, it's got a warranty card. Let's see, 90 days. Oh, I'm sure I already used up some of that time by now since the time I got it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pop it in. You'll know that I'm playing the game when you hear me speak in hushed tones. All right, popping it in, going to turn on the television set like so. And let's see. The famous Atari thing. I like how how it looks like the Barnyard Blaster title is almost like sky typing there, or it's not quite sky writing. The letters are too connected to be sky typing, so I don't know how you call it. But let me see. Shoot 1 or 2 player to begin a game. Where's the? How do I shoot? Well, maybe if I hit reset.
Huh. Don't tell me you absolutely need a light gun for this, especially since they didn't release a light gun for the 7800. But, let's see. Oh, don't tell me I did what I think I did. No, I didn't, huh. This is nuts. Oh, there, did I just see a crosshair? Alright, Oh, I just shot something. Something happened. I don't have a crosshair on here. I guess that you cannot, let me, read the manual here. Blah, 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 blah. Grandpa's blowing screen, farm layout, playing the game, getting started. Plug your Atari XG1 light gun into the left controller port in the front. Whoa. Buy a little light. Oh, are you kidding me? There's nothing here that says, it assumes you have a light gun no matter what you do. Really? Is this how it's going to be? Well, I guess, Phil, you can stop calling me Janitor Sean, and you can start calling me Angry Sean. Okay? Because I'm angry. I can't play this game. I can't. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, but as far as I know, the only way that you could play, the only way that you would have an XG1 light gun, at least back in the Ferg, you had to have an Atari XC system, right? I mean, at least that's what I've been told. This is ridiculous. So basically, you have to have two systems to play this one game? Good Lord. Good Lord. Well, for that reason, I'm going to rate Barnyard Blaster trash. It's hard to give it a higher rating if you can't even play the game. I mean, come on. Anyway, talk to you later, Phil.
That was great. Yes, you need the gun that originally came with the XG system or XE system, the XG1 gun. So sorry about that, XG Sean. That was really fun to listen to. You know, they don't make it obvious. It's like in little print on the back of the box that you need the light gun. It's not like in the front of the box that says requires light gun. I remember the NES games, they used to have that little, zapper picture. Nothing here to do that. So I wonder how many, like I said earlier, how many kids bought this not knowing and doing the same thing. Like you could push the button so it says to shoot, but I don't know that it shoots anything. Oh my goodness. Now they may have had it separately available, but it wasn't widely separate available. And like I said, there was plans to make an orange version to release for the Atari 7800. And I remember seeing a picture of that in the, Atari Magazine issue 3, I believe. But yeah, it's, and when you said, I didn't do what I think I did, what did you do? I was curious. Now you got me curious. So let's see. And interesting about the whole theory about shrink wraps, and a lot of the Atari shrink wrapped boxes are crushed. I think a lot of that's just due to it's hard to keep boxes like that in storage without something happening to them. But I've had a lot of experiences lately. Well, not a lot, a couple. I opened up new versions of Crossbow in the past year or so for the 2600 and a new sealed version of Xenophobe. And in both, or was it Dark Chambers? I think it was Dark Chambers and Xenophobe. I opened it up, and not only did the label not have a great look, but the manuals had some stains, these like brown stains on them. Somehow they got stained even though they were sealed. So buying a sealed game for the condition of the game inside, don't do it because it might be worse. You're better off finding a complete copy and looking at the pictures like on something like an eBay of the cartridge and the manual if you're really picky about that. If you're buying the game to keep it shrink wrapped, then you just want to buy a game that looks nice shrink wrapped. But if you want a game because of its condition, don't pay the extra money for the shrink wrap. It's not going to make a big difference, and it might actually look worse. As a matter of fact, I think Pete Rose Baseball I bought for the 2600, brand new, sealed, opened it up, and the label was atrocious. Now, it may have had like an Acta-Plaque, I guess Absolute Plaque thing going on there. But yeah, shrink wrap is overrated by far. If you have a shrink wrap game, I suggest if you're going to collect it, fine. If you're not going to play it, either if it's like a big difference, like if it's a rare title, go ahead and sell it and then buy like a loose copy or a complete copy, and save yourself a few bucks, give yourself a little bit of money to reinvest in gaming or whatever you want to. But other than that, shrink wrapping is, overrated. Thanks, Sean. Check out the Pie Factory podcast. Thank you for having me on, but I do have a bone to pick with you. On a recent episode, one of your most recent episodes at the beginning, it was like the new year and you were thanking everybody and you're thanking a bunch of people. And he thanked me and Ferg. It's like we have our own show. It's like the Phil and Ferg show because we get coupled together evidently a lot. But he was thanking a bunch of people. You forgot somebody. You know who you forgot? Hyde St. Pierre. How can you forget your editor? Editors are, and when it comes to podcasting, if you're lucky enough to have someone who edits for you, I know a few podcasts have people who edit for them. I think like the Retro League. I think Nate's still editing that show. I'm not sure, but editors are like, they're like the unspoken heroes in podcasting. If you have an editor, a lot of people self-edit, but not always. Sometimes people are kind and they say, hey, I'll edit, you just record. And that's a really cool thing for them to do because editing is probably one of the hardest parts about podcasting. If you're not just one of those people who just, go on a rant for 60 minutes and then throw it on iTunes. If you actually do some editing, it is the most time-consuming part. So I understand it's easy to forget someone like a Hyde because they're kind of like the sound men. You go to a concert, the sound engineer, or if you go to a church or something, the sound guys or school functions, the sound guys are like the last people who get thanked. But if something goes wrong, they're the first ones who get blamed. They're like the unsung heroes. So to all those editors and sound guys out there, thank you. We appreciate everything you do. And Hyde's a great guy. When I was guesting on the Pie Factory podcast, which I was very grateful, we're very grateful that they invited me on. I got a chance to talk to Hyde. Great guy. So thank you, Sean. And let's see. Next up from another podcast from the Televisionaries, it's Paul. Let's see what Paul has to say. Paul, it's all you.
Hi, Phil. Paul from the Televisionaries. Just a couple of quick things. You seem to be a pretty worldly guy, so hopefully you can help me out with this. When I go out to my car in the morning, it's kind of wet, and I was just wondering, is that mist or dew? I could never tell what the difference. Maybe you could describe that for me. I mean, back in the day, I probably would have called it mist or dew, but hopefully you have some clarification for me on that. Just give me a shout out when you know. I know you're getting near the end of the run for the show, so having said that, just want you to know that I really dig it. And if this is already the end of the show, then I dug it. Dig, dug, past tense, present tense. Anyway, you mentioned something recently about some changes, maybe some homebrew coverage coming up, but it's not necessarily you who's going to be doing it. But I think of you as Mr. Do It All, so if it's not you, hopefully it's someone who can fill your shoes. And those are big shoes to fill, Phil.
Get out of town. I didn't know you did anything creative.
So, Phil, whomever fills your shoes going forward, I say to them, Mister, do you have any idea how much work Phil puts into this 7,800 game-by-game podcast? Well, I don't either, but I know it's a lot. Hang on a minute, Phil. Someone's at the door. Nobody there. That's weird. I think it was the mail lady, but I missed her. Do you know when she's coming back? Silly me. How would you know that? I don't even know if you know the difference between mist or dew. Well, come to think of it, she wouldn't come back in the day. She'd come back at night. I think. I don't know. Sorry to bother you about that. Anyway, Phil, I wish you continued success, even if it's not with the 7,800 game-by-game podcast. Whatever it may be, mister, do the best that you can do, and we'll follow you. Or something like that. They used to say it that way back in the Ferg, I think. Now back to the Atari 7,800 game-by-game podcast. Already in progress.
Well, thank you, Paul. That was very nice. Oh, okay. I'm feeling guilty, actually. It was weird. You started your submission, and I felt a bit parched. And for some reason, I wanted to get a Mountain Dew. So I got up, and I missed it. Voice, did I miss anything?
All he said was how much he appreciated the podcast, and how envious he is of your robotic voice announcer. He mentioned something about wanting to trade George for me, but Paul, I have a no-trade clause in my contract. Then he played 90 seconds of the Intellivision cheer loop. Yup. That's the ticket. No need to go back and edit anything. You're really gonna love it. Just love it.
Oh, that is so nice. Paul's a really stand-up guy. Great editor, too. Go check him out at the Intellivision's podcast. All right, next up is Shinto. Let's see what Shinto has to say in today's edition of Shinto Says.
I bought Barnyard Blaster at Horizon Computers, the Atari specialty store I talk about in more detail in episode 1 of the Atari Jaguar Game by Game podcast. I had my Atari XEGS at the time. See episode 1 of the Atari XEGS Cart by Cart podcast for the story there. So, since I had a light gun, Barnyard Blaster won out over the other Atari 7800 late releases that they had there at Horizon. I got it home and played it, probably. I honestly don't remember much about the game. A guy awkwardly throws a bottle over his head that you shoot. That's not practicing good firearm safety. But beyond that, I don't remember much about the game, meaning it didn't get a lot of gameplay back in the late 80s, and none since. So I just played it now, just again, to refresh my memory so that I can give it a score. First, I noticed that my Best Electronics light gun no longer works. That's a bummer. It's not like it's a terribly complicated piece of equipment, so maybe I can fix it. I used my XEGS light gun instead. So beyond that, my first impressions were nice graphics, but I'm not digging the music. The rendition of Old MacDonald is not easy on the ears, so I turned the volume way down. My son and his friend from across the street came in to see what I was doing, and the three of us took turns playing different rounds. I then switched to 2-player mode with my son as player 2. He was out of the game pretty quickly, but I kept going until I was sick of it. It was a little repetitive, but the biggest problem is it didn't seem to get any harder. Eventually, I unloaded all my rounds into the dirt to end the game with around 15,000 points in a rank of redneck. The graphics are nice, the sound effects are not quite as annoying as the music. There are certain targets that I would refuse to shoot. Rabbits? I'm not going to shoot rabbits unless I'm hard up for food. Green geese? No, never. Chickens? I had chicken for dinner twice this week, I don't need another. And it's kind of like a Duck Hunt on the NES. I don't play Duck Hunt. I don't shoot ducks. I like ducks. I have 3 pet ducks right now. So the way I play the game is gun on the rail. I used to do competitive handgun and shotgun shooting, and before you're clear to fire, you keep your gun down on or just above the waist-high railing. So with light gun down, the target appears on the screen, I raise it up and fire, and then lower the gun again. You don't really aim with the XEGS light gun, you just kind of get a feel for where the shot is going to land, and I can shoot like this with fairly decent accuracy. I did encounter some hit detection issues, but for the most part, I think this is an okay little game. Difficulty could ramp up faster. I wish you could shoot the cans faster. You know, if you could shoot them for time instead of just accuracy, that would have been a nice added bonus. Barnyard Blaster is best played at a very low volume and in small doses, but given those criteria, I think it can eke out a solid rating. Barely solid. What's barely solid? Gelatinous. I rate Barnyard Blaster gelatinous. Back in the Double Dragon episode, I touched on a small arcade room at a burger joint. There was this little alcove near the entrance that held a Double Dragon, a Space Harrier, and an Ikari Warriors machine. There was something else in there too, maybe a claw machine, but we never used that. These 3 games I'll always remember fondly because I first played them in this little arcade. I spent a fair amount of yen playing Space Harrier in the Shenmue arcade, the Dreamcast game, and I've got a copy of Space Harrier 2 for the Genesis. But this isn't the Genesis Gems podcast or the Dreamcast Junkyard Dream Pod, so I'm going to focus on Ikari Warriors now. The rotary joystick was really cool on that arcade machine, another one of those arcade controls that you can't really duplicate at home, and the cooperative 2-player gameplay was excellent. The graphics were cool too. I was blown away by the plane crash in the beginning. So I was part of a theater group, a community theater at this time, and we had a couple gatherings at this restaurant. There were several families heavily involved with the theater, and one of them hosted a Christmas party at their house. The daughter was my girlfriend. At the party, the grown-ups were upstairs doing whatever grown-ups do, and we kids, pre-teens, early teens mostly, we hung out in the basement playing Nintendo. 2 games in particular, Kid Icarus and Ikari Warriors. We had a blast with Ikari, 2 players at a time largely because it didn't need quarters. We could do the ABBA trick to continue. Well, there was one other video game there in the basement that we played more. It was a cocktail pong machine. They had bought this Pong machine at a garage sale for $11. I think it required some minor repair, but it was in great shape, and we played it all night. My girlfriend and I, it didn't work out in the end, and no, we couldn't make it work for the sake of the Pong machine. I wonder if she still has it, but that would be an awkward phone call. So after that night, hanging out with my girlfriend and other friends from the theater, playing video games, listening to Weird Al, generally having a great time, when I saw Ikari Warriors for the Atari 7800 in the mail-order catalog at Radio Shack, I had to buy it. This was after having played Commando for many hours, the game that my brother and I loved, but wished that we had that two-player option like in Ikari Warriors, so this should have been perfect. Should have been. The graphics weren't as solid as Commando, the music certainly not as good, and, well, my brother and I weren't really playing many games together at that time. I'm not sure why. The game isn't nearly as fun with just one player, and I don't know if there's a continue code like in the NES version. I'm pretty sure I tried left, right, left, and it didn't work. I'm going to venture a solid rating for Ikari Warriors. I would have preferred to get some more actual two-player co-op gameplay experience with this, but it arrived at the wrong time to really get into, unfortunately. I'm really curious how this game stacks up to the arcade and NES versions. I watched the Angry Video Game Nerd episode on NES Ikari, and some of the later levels are kind of weird, but I never got that far at the Christmas party, and wouldn't get that far by myself on the 7800 without more time than I'm willing to invest. The Ikari Warriors arcade game is available on the PlayStation Network for the PSP and PS3, but I haven't bought it simply because I wouldn't have a second player by my side, and it's just not the same with one player. So while I'll say Ikari Warriors on the Atari 7800 is a solid game, it didn't capture what I was looking for. And, I don't think it really could have.
Thanks, as always, Shinto, and be sure to check out the Atari Jaguar Game by Game podcast. He is just releasing, I think right around now, he's going to release a Tempest 2000 episode, might already be out, and I think Kasumi Ninja's coming next. And one day I'm going to get my Jag out again and play some more. I've just been swamped lately. One redundancy in your little submission, you don't have to say we were listening to Weird Al and we were having a great time, because that's redundant. If you're listening to Weird Al, you're having a great time. It's total redundant, but it's okay. I totally forgiveness. I really, the gelatinous rating, that's great. That's really great. Higher than I thought it would, but yeah, I'm sorry about the best electronics light gun. That's a bummer, but you're right about the XG1 light gun. It takes a while because it's not dead straight. It doesn't matter. So if you have a light gun and it's shooting off center a little bit, it's probably just the light gun. That's just how it works. I share a lot of your sentiments about Barnyard Blaster. It's like, I didn't care. Like, I shot the group of pixels that looked like chickens and rabbits, but it didn't do anything for me. I'm like, why am I shooting these critters? They're like these just innocent kind of animals. Don't you want to have chickens on a farm? I didn't. It wasn't exciting. And as some people mentioned, there's a lack of action in the game, and it just like you, I just stopped playing. I didn't even bother to shoot my bullets in the ground the first time to see my ranking. I didn't know it did a ranking at the end, so I just turned the system off. Then I read the manual. It's like, oh, they do a ranking, so I tried it out just to see what the ranking screen looks like. Nothing special, same as the status screen. So, yeah, it's what can you say? It's Barnyard Blasters. There's no continue option in the 7800 version that I know of. The NES version I played. And I guess I'll just get to my ranking of both these games. First of all, for Barnyard Blasters, just about everybody said meh. We had a few solids. I'm going meh. There's no action. It's boring. One thing moves at a time, and it's not like games need to have a little tension. Like, I better succeed or something bad's going to happen. Whether it's winning a sports game, I better score, or the other team's going to win, or whether it's saving the world, I better shoot the aliens, or the world's going to explode. But in Barnyard Blaster, it's like, who cares? And the bonus screen is just overdone. Having to do the grandpa throwing up the bottle thing over and over and over again is just redundant. It would have been a nice touch. Maybe just make it to 4 levels and alternate. And if they increase the difficulty more, and there's no difficulty setting, but yeah, I agree with everybody for the most part. Meh. Ikari, I'm going to break away from the pack, and I guess I'm going to be the only one who's going to rank it this way, because I think just about everybody gave it a solid or solid plus. I went into Ikari thinking I really liked Commando. I went into Ikari Warriors thinking that, no way this is going to match up to Commando. And I was like really hesitant going into it. Now, previously to this, I played the NES version. I do not like the NES version at all. It is without the continues. There's a continue code and a level select code out there. But even with the continue code, it didn't entertain me. I think I said this in Commando. Commando was like an aberration. I'm not a big run and gun fan. And when I played it, it was difficult. It was so hard for me to get anywhere. I felt like the only way for me to win was to have unlimited continues. And the levels are long. I think they're like 10, 20 minutes long, and there's 4 of them. It is a very long game, and it was just too much. So I played that, and then I went into the 7800 version. And so I went into it. Now I'm really worried because I've already have the presumption that I'm not going to like it as much as Commando, and not hate, but I really dislike the NES version. I played Ikari Warriors, and once I got used to the controls, you hold the button and you shoot you shoot wherever you aim. It's like I said, I think it's the best you could do without a rotary controller is the fact that you can strafe. I had a good time. And I like the aspect that it's more of a thinking game, that you kind of have to use some strategy. You have to decide, you have to kind of creep and, I guess, strategy and stealth. You have to kind of be a little stealthy, like know the range of your enemy's weapon, and you have to kind of be more cautious and deliberate with your moves. And I actually enjoyed that. I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed the controls once I got used to them. It's been a while since I played a game, and I was so drawn into it that I couldn't wait to play it some more. I do a lot of games. I do a lot of reviews. Some games are better than others, but it's very rare that it's like I want to be like, stop the presses. I don't care what games I have to review or cover. I just want to play this some more. I want to see it through. I played this game all the way to completion. I spent several nights playing it over and over again, and I just had a really good time. Just one long level, takes about 15, 20 minutes to play through. Novice, the skill level was just right for me. It had a lot of challenge, but you had to be really deliberate. And once I got used to it, I had a lot of fun. I just really dug the controls, being able to hold your shot when you go. It's not perfect, but I'm giving this a Hall of Fame rating. I like this, and I actually like this better than Commando. I know it sounds like blasphemy, but I personally liked it better than Commando. I have to go with my opinion, and that's what makes these podcasts and discussions fun, is that we don't always agree. This is a very fun game. To me, it's Hall of Fame. Even single player, I had a blast. I understand if you were used to playing single, 2-player like Shinto, it's going to miss something. I understand if you don't like the graphics as much, and I understand if you like Commando better. It's really close. I think they're like side by side, and I give an edge to Ikari just because I like the way it controlled a little bit better and the overall deliberateness of it. It was a little slower pace, but I actually kind of like that. Hall of Fame for me, but everybody else says salad, so we're going to say that Ikari Warriors is a salad. So there you guys go. Check them out. By the way, I do have one correction to make on my Hall of Fame. I have to bump Alien Brigade. I looked at my list, and I decided that it's just on the outside looking in. So Alien Brigade got bumped down. I'll go over more of my Hall of Fame in a future episode. So let's see. Speaking of which, what do we got going on in the future? Okay. Next up, episode 26 is going to be Tomcat F14, Ferg Simulator, and Super Skateboarding. This episode's getting released a week late. I have a really busy weekend coming up, so either I will just release this episode around 2 weeks after, or the next episode 2 weeks later, even though I'm kind of off schedule, or I'll wait a third week. We'll just see how things work out. After that, 27 will be Map Mania and Planet Smashers. 28 will be Sentinel and Ninja Golf. And I think Sentinel is another game that requires a light gun, and it wasn't officially released in the US. So if you get a PAL version, you have to have like a PAL setup and a light gun to use it. And they did, there was like a homebrew hack where it was fixed. So those are the next 3 games. If you ever want to send in feedback, please do. I have to pick a winner. I'll probably be emailing someone soon, but I would really appreciate your feedback. Even if it's for an old game that I covered, if you just picked up the podcast, give me just a quick summary of what you think of all the games you played so far that we've covered, all the earlier titles. Send it to Atari7800podcast at AOL.com. That's Atari7800podcast at AOL.com. Audio or MP3, keep it family friendly. I'd appreciate that. But yeah, send it in. I want to get it. We only got, 5, 6, 7 episodes left. Send in your submissions now before it's too late, because once I shutter it, it's shuttered. We'll have something else coming up after that. But I want to get your feedback on the original releases while we're going over them. You can also follow me on Facebook, facebook.com/7800 Game by Game Podcast. I'm on YouTube as the No Swear Gamer. I started something new every Friday, or most Fridays. I'm going to do something called Finale Friday, where I show you the ending of a video game. So spoiler alert, so you can check that out. But I mostly do reviews, and I'm getting some 7800 caught up. I'm working right now on an Alien Brigade episode, which will be out around the same time that this one comes out, probably. And let's see, you can also go follow me on Facebook as /the No Swear Gamer, or Twitter, the No Swear Gamer. Or if you want to support any of my work, just go to patreon.com/No Swear Gamer. Recently, I had a few more additions. I'm going to have to check and get back with you. I know Jungle Rat Rob from the Retro League signed up recently, and I appreciate that greatly. All right, I'm a member of the Retro Junkies Network, just like the Intellivisionaries and the Atari 2600 Game by Game Podcast, the Atari 5200 Super Podcast, and a bunch of others. Go to theretrojunkies.com to see more of them. And thanks for listening. So remember, guys, games are fun, but always keep first things first. I will catch you later.
We now return control of your MP3 application to you. Until the next fortnight at approximately the same time, when the Atari voice will take you to the Atari 7800 Game by Game Podcast.